Good morning, it's Thursday, June 11th, and we're going to continue our discussion on action and problem solving with a prompt from the Daily Stoic which reads, how often is anger more destructive than what caused it? Now, I can't tell you how many times I picked up and put down my pen this morning before committing to writing anything on my paper. And it's not because the prompt was particularly challenging. It's not. It's a rhetorical question, at least in my opinion. But I also recognize that these have been two very emotionally charged last couple of weeks. And I want to be sensitive to the fact that everyone's processing those emotions differently. And anger is something that we've all had to deal with in some form or fashion only recently. So it would be tone deaf of me to sit here in total Zen Buddhist-like state and suggest that we need to eradicate anger from all facets of our lives right now. I think far more important, at least in this moment, is to consider how we process that anger and recognize our control over its ability to drive our actions that follow. So I recently heard a Zen Buddhist story about ancient Japan that I was reminded of whenever I read today's prompt. And while I was doing some research earlier on the source of that story, I was unable to verify whether the second half was true or not. But I think it drives home an important point and is kind of humorous, so we'll go with it. Anyways, there once was a Japanese samurai whose overlord had been killed by another man. And that samurai traveled far and wide and managed to track down that killer and ended up cornering him in the back of a cave. And as the warrior began to draw his samurai sword to exact retribution, the other man spat in his face. The samurai then sheathed his sword and turned and left, leaving the man dumbfounded, but yet very much still alive. The next day, the samurai returned to the same spot in the cave and again cornered the man. As he once began to draw his sword, the other man again spat in his face, but this time the samurai continued to draw his sword. The killer said, "What are you doing? Yesterday I spat in your face and you left me alone." And the samurai replied, "Yesterday, when you spat in my face, you made me angry, and I never use my sword when I'm angry." And with that, he cut off the other man's head. So hopefully we never find ourselves in a position required to carry out a duty like the samurai in our story, but there is quite a bit that we can learn from that samurai code. First, when we begin to feel anger, it's critical that we ask ourselves, why are we angry? There's always an underlying emotion, often hidden beneath the surface. For me, that simple thought exercise usually creates just enough space and time between stimulus and response to prevent anger from being the driving emotion behind my next chosen action. And that's where I agree with Marcus Aurelius when he said, how much more damage anger and grief do than the things that cause them. Rushing into decisions while being driven by anger only makes bad situations worse. We aren't able to see alternate perspectives. We haven't yet processed and identified the source of our feelings of violation or injustice. How can we possibly make the best decision in that moment? One that objectively assesses the situation and allows us to selflessly redirect our actions towards the things for which we actually do have the ability to influence. Now, thinking back to our samurai warrior, the next time someone spits in our face, literally or metaphorically, remember not to draw your sword immediately. At the very minimum, at least momentarily, take your hand off the hilt for a few seconds. With that slight pause, we're more likely to choose a course of action that's better aligned to the samurai's code of honor and justice. Hope you have a great day. Bye.